Peace, family, peace. We are back. Oh man, good to see y'all again. I'm back for another show. Gonna have a great show tonight. This show is done. What they call today? Columbus Day. That's what they call today. So there's gonna be a lot of misinformation. That's gonna be, this queen here is gonna correct a lot of the misinformation out there. I wanted to before we're gonna get to a few commercials. Before we get to a few commercials, I wanna welcome Queen Yonasda back to the show. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me. We were just talking about the last time I came
Yeah,
on 7 years ago.
about 7 years. Yeah, it was a while. I
Yeah,
was at the National Black Theater. You and Blue Pill. It was a
yeah,
great show. So I look forward to having an updated conversation to that conversation.
yeah.
Family, I want y'all to get comfortable. Hit the like button. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We will be right back. Let's get to a couple of commercials and we'll be right back and get started. Right, family?
Welcome to the Sacred Tree. This is Stardust Jewelry for the Collective. All of our pieces are spiritually downloaded, handcrafted, and created with the love and healing powers of our set. We pride ourselves on using nothing but the best crystals, 14 karat gold, and sterling silver to highlight the conductivity of this alchemical process. So many superpowers for us to tap into, and the crystals are here to help you. I always say whatever crystal you choose, it chooses you at the same time. It's a symbiotic relationship. So feel free to tap into thesacredtree.life, see what we have to offer. Rock.
It's the numerovational session with King Simon. Text your full name and date of birth to 347-496-1022. That's 347-496-1022. And get my books on Amazon now. On Sunday, October 9th in Stone Mountain Village from 2 to 7 p.m. Papa Ashwa Kwesi and the Red Pillar will be in Stone Mountain. Get your tickets through Linktree/King Simon the Numerator or text now at 347-496-1022. Get your tickets now.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself, it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Petey was with me. Order your copy of Kayla Petey and the Forest on Amazon today.
All right, family. We are back. We are back. I see Kafunya in the building. Shout out Kafunya. I see you, Kafunya. So Queen Yonasda, this day I usually I'm accustomed to seeing you on the Breakfast Club. I didn't see you this year on the
Yeah,
Breakfast Club.
yeah. So every year, I usually do a media run, and I started doing it in 2015. I never thought about doing it until Charlemagne, a good friend of mine, hit me up after the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. And when
Mm,
he saw the way that I organized all of the indigenous nations and everything, and when I spoke, he was like, "Man, I got to get you on the Breakfast Club." And I was like, "All right." So I go on the Breakfast Club, and while I was there, that's when I hit up Blue Pill and and hit up so many other different allhiphop.com. And I was like, you know what, this is a great opportunity to teach people about Indigenous Peoples Day. And that Christopher Columbus, of course, that we know didn't discover America. Our Arawaks and the Tainos were already there,
mm, mm,
And so from there, I was like, after that year, I started bringing more Native Americans with me, friends of mine that are celebrities throughout Native country, as well as educators, influencers, and so I just started bringing different folks with me on my annual media run. And this year, I didn't do it. I'm battling stage 4 lung cancer, so
mm.
traveling has been
Hard to hear.
very, it's been difficult for me to be
Mm,
able to travel like the way that I used to. Last year, I did Sway in the morning, which was, Sway him and Heather B gave me the full hour. It was
excellent.
amazing, and I did that. I went to Carnival for the first time last year.
Mm,
I wanted to be able to learn the history, the traditions of Carnival, and to
mhm,
be with the first Indigenous people of the Caribbean that, if we're talking about Indigenous Peoples Day and we talk about Christopher Columbus, he went to the islands. And I was like, you know what? Let me learn from the people of the Caribbean, and let me learn these traditions and what Carnival and Juve and all of that is all about. And I had an amazing time. And this year, I just basically just took in the day and just did nothing really.
excellent. Hey,
Yeah.
doing nothing is important sometimes. It's very important sometimes.
Yeah.
So like I said, since our last conversation, um, I think what you talk about is more prevalent than ever. There's all types of movements going on right now. The African American, what we call the African American, is really trying to understand who he or she is. And I've never seen so much talk about us being indigenous, native, or I don't know if I'm using the right term to this land. You got there's brothers out there like Dan Calloway. You got the ADOS movement that went national and they was all over CNN. You got Tariq Nasheed with FBA movement. There's so many different I've had different gentlemen on this channel. I'm hearing about America being just as important or ancient as Egypt. Before, in the conscious community, everybody was talking about Egypt. Now a lot of people are talking about how important and how spiritual America is to the overall equation of this world. So I seen the attention go from Egypt and that being the most beautiful place ever to America being the most beautiful place ever and the most secretive place that has been historically that has been hidden from the people that we call African Americans here in this country. With that being said, what do you think about all the movements and that's going on right now with the so-called African Americans in this country trying to understand their true history and heritage of who they are?
I think it's a beautiful thing. The number one thing I feel that we need to have is knowledge of self, knowledge of true self. Our ancestors didn't get the opportunity. And I'm not going to say everyone's ancestor because I don't know everyone, but I'll talk about mine. On my father's side is Black. My family was Zulu by way of Mali and then stolen and taken in as slaves and was dropped in Alabama on my father's side. My mother's side is Ogallala Lakota, Native American from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So South Dakota, North Dakota, the Canada area, and my last name is Lone Wolf from Chief Lone Wolf. And so that's my lineage. And I'm very proud of my lineage on both sides. I'm not ashamed that on my father's side were slaves because before they were slaves, they were Zulus, a warrior tribe. And in my DNA on both sides are warrior tribes. That's why I'm always fighting on the front line and everything. And I think that with social media, with the internet, with the fact that we're able to travel, we have an opportunity to really get to know who we are as individuals and who our family is, and with science and everything to be able to know our lineage. And I think it's important that we start to do that. And I believe that when you're saying the beauty and the secrets of the Americas, of Turtle Island, all over the world has these amazing secrets. And once you find out what your lineage is and who your family is, whether it's African, Asian, or Native American, or whatever your lineage is, your individual lineage is, you'll begin to start really tapping in. We're people of the earth. And because we're people of the earth, we're already connected to everything of Mother Earth. In our language, we say Unchi Maka in my Lakota language. So we're already connected to Mother Earth, and we're connected by DNA to this earth. And so wherever we go, all over the world, we're going to feel tapped in, And I'm happy my brother Blue Pill is on, because wherever he goes, he taps in. And that's because of the fact that he has knowledge of self. He knows who he is. He knows who his father is, his mother is, his lineage. So when you start to really begin to know who you are and whom you are, then no matter where you go in the world, you will automatically feel some type of connection. So even with I believe I have 20% French in me. When I go to Helen, Georgia, which is which they basically kind of made into a European little town. I'm like, man, why do I feel connected to this? We're all feeling connected to whatever is in our DNA. So even if it is 20% white, 5%, 1%, or 2% native, or 50% African from a certain tribe, or whatever your lineage is, you automatically feel connected to something of Mother Earth.
How do you feel, being that you've traveled a lot, there's so much talk on the internet. There's a lot of YouTube scholars, and I hear a lot of, I don't want to say it's just coming from YouTube scholars, but some people who say things don't have the opportunity to travel that much. So they say things that they've read in a book. But I'm interested in your perspective, being that you are so well traveled and you've talked to so many different communities, on the idea that the slave trade is exaggerated. It didn't happen to the extent, the magnitude that they said it happened, that there's a lot of lies being told about African Americans being slaves in this country. From your experience, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know why they say that. I can't speak on why they say that. I've heard that. I've seen. I was just talking to Blue Pill today that we need to get out of thinking that memes is Bible. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really need to get out of thinking that these memes that we see is exactly actual factual without doing your own research, and not always reading another book, but actually traveling to the lands. I would say this. I went to Africa Town. You ever been to Africa Town?
No, where's that?
Exactly. You ever been to Africa Town, Blue Pill?
Blue, your mic was muted. We can't. What you said, Blue?
I didn't say anything. I said,
oh.
I've been to two places. Which one was Africa Town?
Africa Town here in America.
New Orleans?
Alabama.
Oh, yeah, I ain't. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So there's a book. There's a book that is by okay, I'm about to Google Africa Town real quick. I want to make sure that I'm having actual facts as I'm talking to Africa Town. It's by Cujo. If you ever read the book by Nora Zero Hurston, and it's on Africa Town. It's the Catilda. You ever heard of the Catilda?
I have not, no.
Okay, so and this goes down to my point in regards to it was exaggerated. It was this. There's so much history in Black history that we still haven't tapped into, including Africa Town. So Africa Town was basically so the Catilda was the last slave ship that ever came to America, and it was in the let me see what time. Oh, in 1860. It was an illegal. So even after they stopped, even after they made it illegal for you to be able to take ships to America, then what they did, pirates was still taking slaves from Africa and bringing them to America illegally. And the Catilda was the last slave ship that came, and it basically docked in Alabama, right on the shores of Alabama. When it docked, that's when the government stepped in and was like, okay, you know what? You guys can't go back to Africa. You guys will have to just, be sharecroppers or something. You know what I'm saying? So this is my own version of it. So if you ever get a chance, read the Catilda or on Cujo by Zora Hurston. I'm sorry, but so what happened is that those slaves or the enslaved Africans from various parts of Africa, they wanted to go back to Africa, but they didn't know how to go back to Africa. So they started getting their sharecropper money and putting their money together. And then they went and bought a plot of land in Alabama and they named it Africa Town. Africa Town still exists today. As a matter of fact, when I was fighting for Shakisha Clemens, who was harassed at the Waffle House, she is a descendant of those that were on that ship that created Africa Town. Her family actually lives in Africa Town. everyone that's tuning in should be able to go to Africa Town. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is that it's so many of these stories. And the only way that you will be able to know this history is by traveling, getting in the car. You don't have to travel far. Go in the backwoods of the places that you are kind of scared of to drive through in the South. And best believe you're going to meet with some elders that are in their 90s, you know what I'm saying? And they're going to tell you these stories. They're not made up stories. This is their actual lives. I went to various parts of Alabama and I met with elders. I was in Africa Town. It was me, Tamika Mallory, my son, Tori Russell from Ferguson. And we was we was like, oh my God. They like the blood, sweat, and tears of these Africans that put their money together to create Africa Town. As a matter of fact, some of the homes are now up for sale, and you could be able to. I always tell people, if you want to invest into your own, they have their own government and everything in Africa Town. So if you want to be able to build your own, build in places that those sharecroppers that put money together and bought land, they all have history. So I believe it's very important for us to be able to reading books is good. You know what I'm saying? I could give you a list of books to read, but I also believe that you also have to go through experiences. You got to get in your car and travel outside of the norm and be able to meet with people and go into these communities and get to know and hear all these various stories, because everything is not in a book. And everything, and I was on Tariq Nasheed's show one time, and I was telling him that our stories, you see that beautiful blanket behind you, Black Magic? That's a story. That's a story. And only the person that did that can decipher that story.
I like how you put that. That's a story. I like how you put that.
All of our things when I say indigenous people, I'm meaning original inhabitants of the lands of the world. All indigenous people of the world have hidden some of our most deep history in our regalia, the things that we wear, in our blankets, in our quilts, in our songs, even in our foods. There's a story behind the beans. There's a story behind the rice, of how the rice came into creation. See, we call them folklores because our colonizer taught us that they were made up fantasy folklore stories, but they not. These were real stories and real creation stories of the many things, all the way from the papaya to the coconut to the foods that we eat. There's creation stories behind all of these things. So we limit ourselves thinking that, oh, it's in the book. Oh, this didn't happen this way. This didn't, because, or is it because we're ashamed? Or is it because we didn't want, all Africans weren't all kings and queens. Everyone had a different position in the kingdom. Africa's a huge continent with thousands of tribes, the same as North America and South America and the Caribbean, with thousands of tribes. So to limit it to one place and say, oh, that's all Africans, that's all Native Americans, that's all Latinos, you know what I'm saying? That's all Asia. Like, no. I was just telling Blue Pill today that right now, as we speak, the Mongolians are being forced to go into war, why are they being forced? Because they were colonized by the Russians 400 years ago. They're the indigenous tribes of Russia. And they're being taken and they're being forced to fight a war that does not, they're saying they're out there fighting right now.
And let me put that on the record that this is a old indigenous imperialist tactic, right? They enslaved indigenous populations and they always send them off to fight their wars. They decimate the population and those bodies come back undecorated and they go and take those lands. You know what I'm saying? They did the same thing to us.
Over. The same tactic they use.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
taking place right now in Russia, like she said, with the Mongolians and those that you find in Siberia and those places, those are indigenous, you know, for the lack of a better term, melanated indigenous people in those regions. Even if they're very cold regions, those people still have a level of melanin in their skin. You know, their story is in their DNA, and you can see where the quote unquote ethnic bridge took place. But when they wiped those populations out, we would never like. Did you ever speak to anybody that came back from the Iraqi war and told you, "Yo, I was over in Iraq and I seen mad quote unquote black people,"
Right.
and they know the history, they didn't know where it came from, and they
Mm.
had to come back and research and then run into documentation that we was laying out, showing them Baghdad was a full melanated city at one point,
Yeah.
and you know ancient Iraq go all the way back to Moors and all types. I mean, all of this information, you know, is out there, but who's doing the research? Better yet, like who's pulling up?
Yeah.
Because the land got a story to tell, the trees got a story to tell, the rocks got a story to tell. They crying out.
My mother used to always tell a story when we was little, when we used to be up in Arizona. You know, I'm really from Arizona, from Phoenix, Arizona, and we used to climb the mountains. That was like our backyard. And my mother would be like, "Watch out for the rock people. Be respectful of the rock people." And then when I go to other different tribes and they're talking about the relations with the rock people, and then I meet people like Blue Pill that's saying there's energy and there's life in this rock that can heal you. So even the way English is taught, my mother's saying rock people because that's people is life. And then Blue Pill is saying there's energy in this mineral, which is life, right? Which is transformed to could be people. So even the way that our stories are being told, no one is incorrect.
Yeah. Let me say something on the record real quick. I just came back from an interview with KRS-One. It's a big flex.
Yes, 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 yes.
And KRS said, he said the original indigenous, the first people, the very first people, he said they didn't come out of no, they came out of nature. So, you know, in his ideology, in his observation, the way that he teaches it, he literally is like they came up from and through nature.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't come from a chimpanzee, didn't fall out the sky, didn't come on a spacecraft, through nature, right? You feel me? And it you know, when you get into these indigenous trainings and you start going places, they say that the people in the land can never be separate. It don't matter how far somebody from a particular land go, they travel and they take that land with them because the land and the people is synonymous, right? Hence the fact that you can ground on a land and recharge yourself like a battery. You could go anywhere and do that on the planet, but when you are at home, it speaks to you different. You know what I'm saying? It resonates with you different. It activates different things. So we have a very, very synonymous relationship with the planet or the mineral kingdom.
Yonasda, do you think that because I mentioned earlier, people who do a lot of research on YouTube, there's so much information out here that was not available in the past before. I mean, it's mind-boggling the amount of information that's available all over the internet, Google, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. Do you think the elders, you visit these elders, do you think in different areas, do you think they have to update their information or tap into this information because there's things available that may not have been available now? It's sort of like maybe Elijah, there's things he taught about health that maybe Dr. Sebi picked up on because he came in at a later generation. So do you think the elders may have to update their information due to the fact that there's so much out there that we was never privy to before?
I think the elders have a long history of things that have been stolen from them. And they are there's many that is very guarded from sharing and putting themselves, certain tribes with, I always heard that certain tribes, when the white man will come and bring cameras and take pictures of them, they're like, they're taking a part of their soul. So they're like, no, don't take pictures of me. Some of those stories are still being passed on as a part of a tradition that no, don't record us. Right now, I know my tribe, Oglala Lakota, we are trying to preserve some of our stories. We're trying to preserve our language. Because of COVID, many of our elders have passed away and they've taken the language with them. And that's why it's important. Like we just started an immersion school. There's many different immersion schools on various Native American reservations or nations that are teaching the youth the language, through oral way, and as well as we didn't really have anything written in some of our languages. It wasn't written, it was just spoken. And so now we're trying to work on, okay, how do you spell it like this? My name, Yonasda. It looks like Yonasda, but it's Dene, which is the Navajo language. And it's actually spelled Y-O apostrophe N-A-A apostrophe S-H-A apostrophe H-A-A, Yonashaha. But the tribal councilman that is from the Dene Navajo Nation named me during the longest walk in 1978. And he gave me this version of how to spell it. And it's an accent mark between the O and the N. So even with that is not, it had to translate it into somewhere where it kind of looks English like, so we could pronounce it like in an English way, so so a lot of the elders, some are and some not, and that's why I said that it's important to travel. It's important to be able to get this information. A lot of the books, the early on books, especially for Indigenous people in North America, were written by white folks that came in and was like, we got to document this. And they wrote their own version of it, of a story or something they saw, they wrote their own version of what the ghost dance was. They wrote their own version of what the powwow was. They were, and so, and then we also dealt with colonialism on our reservations with the boarding school. The boarding school stripped everyone of their language, their hair, their name, and from their family, and put them into Catholic schools, which is what me and Blue Pill are going to talk about soon, but put them into Catholic schools and stripped them from all of that. So then you had a gap of a generation of Native Americans that was taken from their culture, their language, from everything, and then forced to be basically be colonized. My mother was a part of that. My mother went to a boarding school. She was her hair was shaved. They said all Native Americans had lice, so they shaved all their heads and they bleached them, and they was beaten. Everything. My mother went through all of that. So then when there was a rise of the Red Power movement derived from the Black Power movement, it was Dennis Banks, Russell Means, they basically was like, let's create American Indian movement. Then they went back to an elder that was on my reservation, Crow Dog Senior, and they said, can you teach us these ways that we didn't learn, because we was taken on these boarding schools, we was pushed into the cities, we was taken from our families. So they went back to the land and said, can you teach us? So all of these tribes from all around the United States, they weren't, many of them were not Lakota, but they went to a Lakota medicine man to learn these ways. And then from there, they was like, okay, then let's go back to our lands, to whether it was Apache or the Navajo or the Shinnecock or wherever. And then let's begin to start going to our elders and seeing what our ceremonies and our languages. So today, there is over 500 federally and non-federally recognized tribes in the United States. That means that today there is over 500 different various languages, over 500 different regalia, 500 various ceremonies, creation stories, all of that, because everyone started going back to their ancestral homelands to be able to start learning and learning from the elders. And it wasn't in the book. It was basically going back, you know.
Indeed. I definitely look forward to you and Blue Pill. Blue Pill always tells me about how much the doctrine of discovery changed things and how little people talk about it. So I want to go into that in a little while, but first I want to ask you, and I want to say your name right, Yonasda.
Yonasda.
Yonasda. All right, that's that got power to it. That got that got power to it.
Queen.
What are your thoughts on, the what we call the black voters are pushing the black vote, the grassroots are pushing the Democrats to make reparations a priority right now. That's a big movement in the grassroots movement right now. What are your thoughts on so-called African Americans looking for reparations?
Black people need reparations. There is no thoughts. You got to also understand I'm Black and Native American.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I'm a proud Black woman, and I'm also a proud Native American Oglala Lakota woman. I believe that we both need reparations. People may hate me, call me an agent, call me a bed wench, whatever they want to call me. But I believe that we, especially Black and red people here in North America, South America, Canada, have went in the Caribbean, have went through so much oppression by the same enemy, and we deserve reparations. Now, there is another social media meme that is out there saying Native Americans got reparations. That's a lie. We never got reparations. Those were lawsuits. The same way
People
that
always bring up the casinos.
that's not
People
a
always bring up the
reparation.
casinos and
That's not a
yeah.
reparation. That's not a reparation. You know what I'm
That's just some of the talking points I heard. Yeah, that's some of the talking
Yeah,
points I've heard right there.
that's not a reparation because my tribe is the poorest, one of the poorest communities in the United States, in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. We have a casino. That casino basically say we ain't making money from the casino. I don't get no check from my tribe. None of us get checks from our tribe. In my tribe. Especially the Ochechi Shakoni, which is the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota people. Those that are getting checks is because it's called group economics. And that's something that we in the Black community are also talking about is group economics. That susu, put the money in the pot and let's help each other out. So that same type of concept is what some of the tribes have done. So in regards to the sovereignty of getting casinos, that's a business opportunity and hoping and praying that it would generate income to help your tribe. But a lot of times, a lot of the casinos are not helping the tribes at all. As a matter of fact, some of them are hurting them because of gambling, alcoholism, everything that the casino attracts. Then there's some certain tribes that are doing very well. But if you do the research on the tribes that have not benefited from the casinos and seeing how it has hurt the tribes, the culture, everything, you could see that. Now, there was lawsuits exactly like how the Tuskegee Airmen and many other lawsuits, there was lawsuits that many tribes have fought the government on and won. Right now we're in a lawsuit right now on the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm about to go into a lawsuit on this government giving me cancer when I was in Standing Rock fighting against the Dakota Access Pipeline and they sprayed us with chemicals. There's over 100 people right now that have been diagnosed with various forms of cancer because we was in North Dakota protesting against the Dakota Access Pipeline to make sure they didn't build this pipeline along the Missouri River that was going to mess with all of our water, not just Native American on the reservation. I'm talking about we all use the Missouri River that's in the middle of America and all of the thousands of rivers that's attached to the Missouri River. So if that oil pipeline broke, that would have been it for us. So we all did a sacrifice for everyone. And then they sprayed us with chemicals. So these were all lawsuits. We never got reparations. I feel that compensation, I believe that should be demanded, especially for Black and Native Americans here and all throughout Turtle Island, I believe all of us deserve reparations. There's so many missing children by the hands of Catholicism, of Christendom, that are missing, that they stripped and stole, and there's bodies that have not been discovered. There's so much oppression that all of us have both dealt with, but we're so focused on we do this trauma. Who had it worse than me? We do that. But when we really get a pen and paper and write down what everyone went through, man, we all went through hell by the hands of this open enemy. And I believe that, and I believe both of us need reparations.
Yeah, it's like, when you get locked up and they start comparing war stories.
Yep, that part.
Niggas comparing war. I got a 5-inch gash. I got a 4-foot one. Oh, the oppressor stomped my head all the way in. He just took it like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
You feel me? And nobody ever turned around and was like, all right, well, let's knuckle up with the oppressor.
Yeah.
To this day, right? All this infighting with people who have been turned out by this colonizer, and all of this travesty took place, with this person that's being celebrated today. Yeah. But no vitriol, nobody talks about Italian Americans, right? In fact, our people want to be that without even understanding the relationship that they have with them ancestrally. They want to be the version of what they see today. You know what I'm saying? So if that's not a kick in the back to your ancestors, whether they came here on a boat or whether they got, subdued while they was over here or destroyed as a people or empire, you feel me? There's never been a concentrated effort to call out these culprits. So, I mean, at some point, I hope we could get into this conversation because I got some things that need to be said.
So let's talk about Blue. You always mention how important it is for us to understand what happened with the doctrine of discovery. I know you talked about it before on this channel. Can you refresh our memory? And I know you got some new findings. You and Queen Yonasda.
1490, Pope Alexander VI, right, issues a papal bull called the Intercatera, and what that is the first piece of international law that separates the planet into two parts, east and west. The Pope of Rome gives Spain under King Ferdinand and Isabella, Queen Isabella, the entire entitlement to this part of the planet. And they give the other half of the planet the entire entitlement to Portugal. And they give them a decree and they say, go out and conquer everything that you find in the name of Christianity, right? Whatever land that you conquer, if the kings do not proclaim Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, you have the right ordained to you by me, the Pope, given to me by God himself, to subjugate these people and take any and everything that they have and claim it in the name of the crown and the cross. And that is what they've done, and that is what they're doing to this day.
Yeah.
Right? And all of this goddamn distraction and infighting, you would think that all of these people globally who have been destroyed and denuded and demoted by this one decree would focus long enough to say, maybe we should attack that decree because it's still on the record and still stands as the most powerful piece of international law to this day. Right? So let me repeat. May 4th, 1493, a year after Columbus got here, right? Because Columbus came and then he went back to Spain, right? And he reported. And then, right, the Pope Alexander VI, okay, he issues this decree called a papal bull. So a papal bull is like a proclamation that the whole world, quote unquote, has to, obey, if you will, or you're going to feel the force and the brunt of Christendom. So let me just take a step back real quick, because some people might get confused when I speak about Christianity versus Christendom, right? There were two supernatural causes in Christianity that led to what we know today as Christianity, right? Two supernatural occurrences, both of them dealing with men on the back of donkeys heading
Mhm.
somewhere and seeing apparitions that came out of the sky. So these would be spirits, these would be visions that came out. One of them was Paul, of course. That's when Paul goes from Saul to Paul on the road to Damascus, right? He's encountered by an apparition of Jesus, and he converts. He no longer becomes a Christian killer or the hunter of the disciples or the apostles. He now becomes a proponent of Jesus and creates what's called Christianity as we know it today. Hence the fact that it's called Pauline Christianity. Now, and this ain't no fucking secret.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just that people ain't put one and two together. And then the next supernatural occurrence that was identical was Constantine. And the difference between Constantine is he was an emperor. And at this point, church and state was separate. So the empire, the Roman Empire, was persecuting Christians, and they were never down with Christianity. Just like Paul was killing Christians as a Roman, and he was never down with Christianity initially. Constantine gets accosted by an apparition on the road, a spiritual force, and they show him the sign of the cross, and they say, "Conquering this sign," right? And then he merges the empire, the Roman Empire, with the Church of Rome, and now he creates what's called Christendom. Christendom now is the consortium of different clans and tribes, right? Who never considered or called themselves we're using the terms white. This is where white comes from. The Gauls, the Visigoths, right? The German tribes, the French tribes, all of them now come together under the flag of Christendom to fight against Islam. Okay, and this is where the quote unquote concept of them being white comes from. Because prior to that, they was at war with one another based on their ethnic differences. There was never such a thing called whiteness prior to this. All right. Once they formulate Christendom, they finally get to push the Moors out January 1st, 1492, right, at the Battle of Granada, of which Columbus was present, as well as Ferdinand and Isabella. They gave him the decree to, sail the ocean now that the quote unquote force field is down. You know what I'm saying? And of course, there's different variations of how this story plays out. Because in the journal, Columbus said he specifically was coming to look for the land of milk and honey, right?
Mm-hmm.
In their documentation, they said that Jerusalem was over here. So to say that he didn't know about this is a lie, because the Moors were coming back and forth. And there was Moorish traders, of course, that were able to bring him over, right? They capitulated. Get down and lay down. We don't understand that concept. Your team gets defeated.
Mm-hmm.
You got it. I'm gonna take your head, or you gonna get down. I'm gonna get down. Then they called them Moriscos. You a little more under the auspices now of Christianity. We got a place for you. You know what I'm saying? And they come over here, and then these are the people who are leading the trails. Esteban and different Esteban the Moor. I mean, all of this is Googleable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then they bring them to all of the different places, the citadels, and they're finding gold. And just what they was able to do in Central and South America enough, they were able to fill the European coffers to bring them out of poverty. They got so much gold just out of one place in Mexico that they were able to furnish all Roman monarch. I mean, all the European they had so much gold that they was like, shit, let's just make gold ceilings at this point. Let's just make gold toilets and gold sinks. That's how much gold they took. And that one heist, they were able to sustain the coffers of Europe that they're living off of interest to this day. So a pope who just 1 year, they allegedly found another part of the planet that Europe didn't know about their entire life. Mind you, the Bible and all of that has already been written, and God didn't know about America. That's a whole nother conversation. So you find a whole nother part of the planet that you haven't even explored yet, but yet you want to give it to Spain to say, I'm going to annex this part of the planet to you. The audacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you come over here and there's flourishing empires who all achieve high civilization. The evidence of high civilizations is art, science, architecture, cosmology, right? Mathematics. All of these things that are fully evidenced it was over here. Hence the fact you could go in Mexico and see all of these civilizations still standing in stone. You can't do that without mathematics and architecture. All of those monuments are lined up cosmologically, just like they are on the continent. You can't do that without cosmology and some level of intelligence. So if these people have already achieved a high society, what they need your Jesus for?
Mm-hmm.
And you just figured out how to sail the ocean blue. Right? So the audacity of us not being able to see a finesse when we see a finesse, right? People got finessed.
Yeah.
And because the adversary seems so aloof, we are comfortable fighting one another and arguing amongst one another about the scrappings and the spoils. But somebody who took the whole hog away, you don't got nothing to say to that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Hence the fact that the whole world will be caught up in controversy about white lives matter, but nobody to this day, other than Pope Pablo, said, "Why? Look, he got Pope John Paul on the front of that shirt."
Nobody don't want to talk about that part.
Talk about Pope John Paul because you wouldn't fix your face to say Pope John Paul life don't matter. You can't do that because they have already embedded, right, their worthiness in the minds of melanated people in particular. And if your Pope is white, so is your God. So how could you fix your mouth with the audacity to say white lives don't matter and knowing goddamn well that you believe that God is white? And you refuse to lift a finger to anybody who looks like God because you feel like you're going to have to pay the ultimate price. So this is what we're dealing with right now. This psychology. Today's Columbus Day. I didn't see hip hop having a protest against Columbus. They would say the white lives don't matter, but ain't nobody about Columbus yet, right?
Exactly.
So it's that aspect of it is what we identify to say is fake outrage, because you got to go to the root of a thing to extract it. You just can't pick a tick off. You got to get the tweezers and get the head out.
Chop the head off.
The head of it is the governing document of white supremacy, the thing that gives them the gall to stand up and proclaim the things that they have proclaimed, is the doctrine of discovery. And we're talking about globally. All indigenous people around the planet, right, have suffered from this particular documentation. And the UN knows it, hence the fact that they created the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Independent People, called UNDRIP.
Yep.
And these have been very strategic moves that have been created to give indigenous people some level of redress. But we can't see, the commonality in the crisis that has been brought upon us by the colonizer long enough to say, let's create a global class action suit. Our beef is with the Church of Rome. Our beef is with Spain.
That's where we get our reparations from.
Our beef is with Belgium, right? The Dutch masters.
That's right.
Because the evidence is there. You feel me? Our beef is with the Crown, with the British, right? Because they got their hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
People can say, oh, well, the U.S. wasn't an actual quote unquote corporation while all of this was going on. So that's going to conflude your entire demand of you trying to go get reparations from a people who wasn't even strategic, that they didn't even have their foundations founded yet. But the Church of Rome did, and it's still standing. Right. They got spoils. You missing the whole mark because you're scared.
Yeah.
That's my part.
Yeah. Want me add on Black Magic? All right, so
I'm sorry, yeah, my mic was on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah, please, Queen, add on to that, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Blue Pill gave you guys the history of the Doctrine of Discovery, the Papal Bull, But how is that being applied in 2022? Are we still under the Doctrine of Discovery and the Papal Bulls? Yes. If I want you all to look up City of Sherrill versus the Oneida Indian Nation of New York. The City of Sherrill versus the Oneida Indian Nation of New York was a Supreme Court of the United States case in which the court held that repurchase of traditional tribal lands 200 years later did not restore tribal sovereignty to that land. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote the majority opinion, and basically what she said was, we can't restore your tribal sovereignty, Oneida Nation, because of the Doctrine of Discovery in 2005 in the highest court of the Supreme Court. So even us here in America, I say I have dual citizenship. I'm Oglala Lakota, and I'm Native, and I'm a U.S. citizen by being Black, African American, whatever you want to. I say I'm Black. You guys have different African American, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I say Black. So, because I see everyone debating, I'm not even.
Don't tell the Moors that. Don't tell the Moors that.
Yeah, more whatever.
Yeah, go crazy.
Yeah, man. No, they already attacked. Yo, that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, I get it. I get attacked by everybody: Native, Black, Moors, Hebrew Israelites, everybody, Blue Pills followers, everyone. But you know what? I love all of you guys, so it don't even really matter. Because guess what? If y'all come down to ATL during Revolutionary Healing, I'm embracing you with love. That's what it boils down to. So it's all boils down to love. Anyway, and I just speak on my experience and the things that I've been through and who I am. But so the Doctrine of Discovery, why was it still used in 2005 in the High Court? So even as Native Americans, we are fighting for our sovereignty. We don't own none of this. This day is so important because this is when this man came here and used this papal bull, this Doctrine of Discovery. So whether he landed in the Bahamas, he brought a whole crew with him and they took all of Turtle Island. And they used this Doctrine of Discovery. Why do you think when the Pope comes to America, everything shuts down? They're all hailing the king because they're hailing the rightful owner of this land. They don't even own this.
Be trying to tell them.
So, as an activist, I tell my activist comrades all the time. I tell the conscious community all the time. We could sit here and debate on the $5 Indian. We could sit here and debate on who's the original and da-da-da. We could debate all of that all day. But at the end of the day, we are still not free because the Pope needs to rescind the Doctrine of Discovery. He's not rescinding it. Just what was that, in August, Blue Pill, when he came to Canada?
It was July 25th.
July 25th. The Pope goes to Canada, to the Aboriginal Indigenous people of Canada. Now, this just goes to show a display on who's for the people. And even if they look like us, they not for the people. So the Pope goes and he meets with various indigenous leaders, tribal president, chiefs, medicine people, grassroots, all types of people that are indigenous. They put a head, what's that called? A war bonnet.
War bonnet, feathers, right?
Of feathers on his head. The grassroots people and the traditional people and the conscious people that are indigenous are outraged. Whose uncle was that will put that on that man? Mm-hmm. Then my friend, Seren Fox, who was right there on the front line with me when I went in front of a bulldozer in Standing Rock. See, I don't just talk this talk, I walk this walk. Mm-hmm. So I went up in front of a bulldozer to stop them from construction. Seren was right there. So that's how fearless she is. She goes when the Pope is there with her banner and her sister, a huge banner. So yeah, Pope, you could come here and apologize all you want, about the treatment of what the Catholic Church did to indigenous children. But what we really want is for you to rescind the doctrine of discovery. So she had a big banner. Y'all can look it up, Google it, go back to Canadian news when the Pope came to Canada. There was a big sign that said rescind the doctrine of discovery. Now, when you look at that video, I want you to see the face of the Pope. Yo, if you ever seen a shook man, that man was shook. He was like,
Right.
like you would have thought it was the holy water. He was
Right.
What, you want me to what? I came here to apologize. My little apology for what we did to your children. Nah. Yeah, okay, you could do that, but we want you to rescind the doctrine of discovery. Because see, this is what's going to happen, and this is what they're scared of, is that if this doctrine of discovery is rescinded by the Pope, then the people of Africa, the continent, the people of South America, the people of North America, Australia, certain parts of Asia, would now all of the laws that they created after this doctrine of discovery would be null and void.
Yeah.
There would be no more U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
They don't want that would be, and then by that, if they rescind the doctrine of discovery, then from there we say you establish laws on stolen land.
Right.
So that means that we could start our own government. Everything you did, everything you established is null and void. They don't want to have that conversation. We want to sit here and debate in the comments on who is the real Native American. Let's have her talk about the $5 Indian. Is that a weed she got? What is the da-da-da-da? We want to minimize our conversations, but we don't want to have the real conversation to go up against the real enemy that is stealing this land.
Talk to him. What you was about to say? Yeah, good. Yeah. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Excuse my passion.
I want that. I love it.
Because we sit here and we diminish the sacrifice of our ancestors, of the bloodshed that they did on this land.
Yeah, it's
on this day.
You know, that's a travesty. And if nothing else, you know, this day should unify us. You feel me? Regardless of the skin tone of the people in question, they got decimated by an invading force. You know what I'm saying? And whether you buy into the narrative that you were brought here on a boat or you was here, either which way, you got ran down and trampled, right? By some fucking weaklings in pull-up socks with buckles on them and wigs, okay? And you don't got a mirror to look in where you could look at yourself straight and said, I've done enough to qualify the redress that my ancestors require for me to call man, let alone a God. How dare you? You feel me? But you would rather argue and point fingers about identities. Why you just don't, you know, the lane is open. Get into the traditions and the ceremonies and show and prove that that's who you say that you are. Because the words alone ain't gonna work. You can't lay claim to a culture and a tradition that you don't participate in. Because what's keeping you from it? Is it the white man? Is it a $5 Indian? Are they occupying your space so much? You feel me? That you can't figure this thing out for yourself? Same with the Jews. You can't put a yarmulke on and figure out a synagogue to go to practice your traditions. But you want to say that everyone, you want to be famous for saying who stole what from you, but never putting on record that you took something back, that you valued and coveted. You ain't coveted. That's why somebody took it from you, and all you doing on the internet is talking about it.
Yeah.
But even
that's why we have a movement throughout Native countries in this hashtag land back. Not only is it a hashtag of land back, but it's actually a movement. As a matter of fact, today there was a tribe in California that got their land back. There was African Americans in California, the beach, that got their land back. There's a movement of land back.
That's
but
right.
See, the thing is that brothers, is that we could take all this land all we want. We don't own nothing until this doctrine of discovery is rescinded.
So let me just
What I mean by rescind is, I saw people spelling it wrong, is RESCINDED. Rescinded or rescind.
rescind. So even when the Pope came here on the apology tour, he's not allowed as a pontiff to apologize for the church.
Yeah.
You understand? So his apology, he made a personal apology. And then he made apology on the behalf when he chastised individuals from the church that had something to do with it. He did it as from individual to individual. He didn't do it on the behalf of the church. The church is not by any means, ways whatsoever allowed to take culpability for any claims or crimes, nor is a pope allowed to do it on the behalf of the church. He would not have made it back with his head on his shoulders if he did that.
Yeah.
He knows, right? And the people in the know because that opens them up to litigation and lawsuits, right? They will be sued out of their socks because there's no corner on the planet that they have not done their crime against humanity to establish the name of quote unquote, under the guise of Christianity places. Because the dude that they pushing on us is called the Prince of Peace. But the way that they introduce you to that is through the barrel of a gun or sword. So it's a contradiction in itself. They know that. Y'all just seem to just not understand how to play chess with people. So
What's it, Blue?
the church, right?
You're cutting out.
Yeah, Blue, can you hear me?
Yes.
Blue, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
What wasn't he going around kissing somebody's feet a couple of years ago, the Pope?
And
Or am
in
I bugging out?
2020, the year of atonement, another situation went over the head of Black folks because they don't even know that you the Canaanites and you received your 400 years in 2019. So yeah, the atonement took place, right? He was kissing the feet of Sudanese leaders from they were going through a civil war at the time, and he was begging for peace. Or was he begging for forgiveness? Again, they call him the apologizing Pope. He goes around the planet asking for forgiveness, but not the church. He does it as an individual because he cannot do it for the church. The church don't want no apologies, nor are they willing to make any concessions. They're not in the business of doing that. Their business model is held together by colonialism and imperialism and taking people's shit and holding it. They ain't finna willing or ready to give nothing back. So they ain't about to be talking about, they're saying, look, this was ordained from our God himself. He gives us the right to run down on you because you heathens. It's the same difference between the chosen people and the Goyim. Right? Because Kanye showed you whose lives really matter in this social construct. He said, I'm gonna talk about them. He didn't even talk about them yet. Just telegraphing the move got him muted. Whose life really matter?
What you think my channel got suspended for a couple of weeks ago with Rod Hayes? Because of that. Because of that.
Exactly. So we didn't even they got us to the point where we can't even say the names. We just make an insinuation. Right? This is the way this thing plays out. So again, look at how these religious institutions protect their people, protect their creed, protect their brand.
Their brand. And
so,
their ownership.
Right. And we're dealing with we're dealing with an identity crisis based on branding, right? So the brand of Blackness is what? It has to be defended in public. It's so much in the toilet. I mean, I'm just, tell me if I'm lying or something. Because when I sit back and I'm looking at what's taking place, I'm seeing something totally different than everybody else, because I'm like, all right, everybody's getting this thing wrong. But, there could be wrongs and rights because it's all a issue of perspective. So let me correct myself. From my perspective, what I'm looking at, I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Somebody else might be seeing something totally different. You feel me? But what I know at the end of the day is that we got more in common than we got differences, and we need to compare our notes, our narratives, and our stories, and stop comparing our traumas and our scars and our wounds, or nah, they took $100 million from me. Man, they took 150 from me. I'm the number one victim. We dock in to be the number one victim. Nigga, I've been under the foot for the colonists for 410 years. I've been 15. When you trying to get free? That's all I want to know.
Right. That's all I want to know too. Because we in 2022. And I have a 21-year-old and 11-year-old son. And and there was so many before us that was having these same trauma conversations before us. And I feel that we need to elevate our conversation and elevate our actions in moving forward. In 2016, I was invited by a group of people of all nationalities from all over the world. They went to the Catholic Church, to the Vatican. They was invited. They put in a request to meet with the Pope to see if he'll rescind the Doctrine of Discovery. And he said, I'll meet with these leaders and these activists from all across the country, people from different parts of Africa, different parts of South, all over the world, all came. Native Americans from various tribes went there, and I was invited to go. I didn't go. They were out there in front of the Vatican waiting to meet with the Pope. They had them out there for over 10 hours. Wow. Then they got a call and said, oh, the Pope will not be able to meet with you. See, it's these things. And they were calling me. One of the elders were calling me, and she was like, we've been out here waiting. I think the Pope wants to do it. And see, when the Pope was in Canada in July, the news was, oh, he came to apologize to the Native Americans. They put the war bonnet on him, the headdress on him, and all. But they didn't show the news of the major cry, which was the major demand, which was rescind the Doctrine of Discovery, because they didn't want none of us to start researching what the Doctrine of Discovery is. They didn't want none of us to know. See, the thing is that this is why it's important to know each other, of people of color, of all over the world, to find out what is everyone fighting. Just because it's their fight doesn't mean that it's not your fight either, because it is our fight as well. So for years, many indigenous people of the world have been fighting for the Pope, every Pope, to rescind the Doctrine of Discovery. Why hasn't Black America jumped on board? Why have we been so isolated from this conversation? Because guess what? That is also our freedom as well. That's our new law. So we're saying build a nation of our own. Let's have our own. Let's buy land. Let's separate. Guess what? Native, my tribe, we have separated. We have our own tribal president. We have our own police, our whole government. We have our own everything. We have our own identification card, our tribal ID. And guess what? We're still just as not free as everyone else. Why is that? Because we're still under the jurisdiction, especially if you're federally recognized, we still have them looking and governing everything that we do. That's why it's called federally recognized.
Right. Let me read this summary real quick so we can put some context to this. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm, really trying to keep my calm.
Am I hyping you up, Blue? Am I hyping you up?
Hype me up. And
I'm an Aries, and it's the Aries moon, so I'm charged right now.
I'm in with the Aries moon, so I feel you. This is the summary. The Doctrine of Discovery established a spiritual, political. Baby, that's your phone? Is it? Give me 1 second. The The doctrine of discovery established a spiritual, political, and legal justification for colonization and seizure of land not inhabited by Christians. Foundational elements of the doctrine of discovery can be found in a series of papal bulls or decrees beginning in the 1100s, which included sanctions, enforcements, authorizations, expulsions, excommunications, denunciations, and expressions of territorial sovereignty for Christian monarchs supported by the Catholic Church. Two papal bulls in particular stand out. Pope Nicholas V issued Romanus Pontifex in 1455, granting the Portuguese a monopoly of trade with Africa and authorizing the enslavement of local people, right? And the first time that they snatched somebody from the coast was 1441, right? Remember, the full moon of November of last year, it was the 800-year cycle since 1441 when the first quote-unquote slave got snatched off of the coast by the Portuguese. All right. And the second was Pope Alexander VI, who issued the papal bull Inter Caetera in 1493 to justify Christian European explorers' claims on land and waterways they allegedly discovered and promote Christian domination and superiority, and has been applied in Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and America. Now, I made this point the last time we visit this conversation about the doctrine of discovery, right? The United Nations Declaration of Rights of Independent People, okay, specifically gives you the out that you've been looking for if you're looking for reparations, because your reparation claims should not be one that deals with injustices that have been done to indigenous people in the past.
Yeah.
400, 500 years ago. You can go right to COVID. The UNDRIP gives indigenous people the right to practice their medicine and their ceremonies, right? Specifically what happened during COVID in these 4 places that did not sign the UNDRIP. These 4 places that did not sign the UN Declaration, ironically, are the places that I just read that have benefited from Christian domination of indigenous populations: America, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, right? Those are the 4 countries that did not initially sign the UNDRIP. 144 countries did and 4 didn't. And then they turned around and signed it. They put themselves in the pickle because those 4 countries that I just mentioned were the main specific countries who decimated indigenous populations during C-19. Canada, right? The First Nations died off at a unprecedented amount due to lack of access, right? This is when they marginalized them, and it was not giving them no test, the proper testing, right? And then they said that there was like C-19 was coming from the tribe, so they cut the roads off, and the people couldn't move around, so they couldn't get aid, and they couldn't leave to get aid, right? Aid, they couldn't receive aids, and they couldn't get aid to come in, right? So Canada, right? Australia, we already know what was taking place during C-19 in Australia. New Zealand and America.
Blue. Let's leave that alone, brother. You know what they on. You know what they on with that. I want to keep this video up, my brother.
I feel you. For y'all out there, you trying to get you some reparations, goddamn it, then you need to do some research, motherfuckers. All right. Because I'm not playing these kiddie games with these people no more.
Right.
Everybody want to point fingers and play these games. Y'all not about that life. Go sit down somewhere and do some research and respect people that's frontlining out here really doing the work.
No, they want to talk about, let's talk about the $5 Indian. That's what they're on.
Yeah.
That's what they want to talk about. They want to talk about, I'm not feeling this conversation because let's talk about the $5 Indian and how Native Americans had slaves. They want to have that conversation. That's where they're at with all of this. Like,
you know.
And that's the reason why, I mean, some of them are getting it. Shout out to everyone that is getting it. That really gets it.
I don't, and then there's comments when I'm having a conversation. Yeah, I'm on a conversation only. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love the people. The people know, you know, our heart is with the people. We ain't doing this for ourselves.
Right.
We doing this for the people, but the people are not always ready and able to receive, because this conversation and this information is not something that, this is not part of the daily zeitgeist. And I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But I kid you not,
Yeah.
it's the battery, it's the operating, it is the instrument the white supremacy springs from, that they derive their authority from.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if we, again, at the end of the day, I'm only concerned with if you really want to do something to put a dent in it, even if we're not able to do this in our lifetime, and we leave the instructions to our children,
Yes.
attack the doctrine of discovery with everything that you have, family, at least to get these people to recognize your claims, to bring something to the table, because everything else you spinning your wheels, and we're gonna be stuck in these emotional wheels spinning situations, and it kicks up a lot of dust. Wheels, you could do donuts and all of that. That's cute, but you ain't going nowhere. You're just doing a donut, and you look like a donut at the end of the day.
Man, I want to get to a few Q&A before we get out of here. I know the Queen got to get up in the morning, so I want to get to a couple of questions before we get out of here. Family, give us some good questions. No foolish ass questions, y'all. Give us some good questions. We're gonna answer a couple of questions. I want to thank all of y'all for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We got about 1,800 people in the building right now.
That's a blessing. Shout out to everyone. All of the, this is I really, I was telling Blue Pill, I was like, Blue Pill, should I get on this? And just because, man, I be getting dragged. But you know what? I mean, it comes with the territory. For those that know me, know my work, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm a continuance of what my mother, Juanetta Lone Wolf, and and my family has done. And so I'm in my purpose, and it is what it is. So I appreciate you all for giving, for having me come on, Black Magic, Blue Pill. You guys are family.
And I made
that's tuning in too. You guys are family as well, and so I just want to, it feels good to be in here. So thank you so much.
I put in the description earlier, I said that this was your introduction, and it's not.
No.
Me and Brother Rich did an interview with you in New York.
We talked about that. Yeah. National Black Theater.
National Black Theater. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was good. I think that was also the introduction to all of the hate I got to.
No, I think you was talking about the Dakota pipeline in that interview.
I was. It's just that I just think that my job is so difficult because I'm fighting on 3 fronts. I'm fighting for 2 fronts, and I'm fighting against on 1 front, which is colonialism. I'm fighting against colonialism, and it's on my Black side, and it's on my Native side. And then I'm fighting on, like, okay, y'all, we got to unite. I'm not saying we need to be exactly as each other, but we have to unite. We're fighting the same enemy. We've been fighting the same enemy before Columbus. We've been fighting the same enemy after Columbus, or I should say after Columbus, we've been fighting the same enemy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I just think that we have to, it's just a lot. It's a huge toll. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm 44 now.
And you fight.
Huh?
You fight.
What'd you say?
And
he said, and you fight
cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting cancer. So I don't have the energy like I used, man. I was fired up when last time I was on your show, and I don't have, and I think that when we're speaking about something as important, and exactly what Blue Pill said, if it's not going to be in our lifetime, at least you have this knowledge to be able to start organizing in your communities, in your nations, and figuring out, okay, how can we get this Pope to rescind the doctrine of discovery? How can we, that's where our reparations are at. That's where our reparations is at. You know what I'm saying? And that's where we start a new government. That's where our sovereignty, our freedom, free the land. That's exactly what free the land is. And we continuously want to debate on things that really is not not benefiting us.
You know what it is, Queen, and I'm sorry to
Thank you, Brandon. Help me understand.
I'm sorry to cut your wisdom. You know, because I'm obviously I have a channel, so I watch other channels to, you know, I'm looking for new guests, and I'm looking to see what the people are talking about, what the people are into, what the, you know, what's going on in pop culture. It seems as though at this point, who we call blacks or African Americans, as a collective in the grassroots, it feels like the sentiment is they feel we don't have allies. So the arguing, all that, we don't give a fuck about the Indians, we don't give a fuck about the Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. It's like when you read the comments and everything, most of the immigrant laws that got the immigrants over here was passed because of us, our fighting. We didn't even want to go to certain wars in certain countries because the people had some type of melanin. Whether you talk about Vietnam or other wars or whatever, it seems like our people feel like we're always fighting for other groups. And in 2022, moving forward, we don't want no black-brown coalition. We don't want no allies. It seems like we want to go at all this by ourselves. And that's what I'm getting, reading the comments, watching the shows, looking at all this. Ally shit is done with. So we're like, fuck all of this. We don't want to hear that bullshit.
Let me address that. And you made a really great point. Everything you said was off of the internet and off of social media. But when you go into the community and you're organizing, it's a whole nother ball game. And another thing too, because I'm in all of these communities, everyone is saying the same exact thing. They're like, I swear, yo, I'm like, Latinos, Mexicans be like, black folks don't come over here. They don't be helping us with what we dealing with. Then I go into the black community. Mexicans ain't coming over here. Where the Indians at? They ain't over here. Then I go into the res. Man, nobody coming over here. Everyone is saying the exact same thing. And now this is the design. Let's get into the design, the system that we're all fighting. See, we get so caught up on these accounts, and we thinking we know who is behind them. Women, I talked about Standing Rock for several reasons. One of the reasons is, look at my skin. Man, I think I'm browner than both of y'all. You know what I'm saying? And I was up in Standing Rock. And when I went up against in North Dakota, there was no one that's browner as me that was in Standing Rock, North Dakota, when I was up there. And I went up there and I went up in front of that bulldozer to stop that construction, and it went viral. Democracy Now! Posted it and it went viral. And everyone was like, who that black girl? Then from there, this was reported. You all, homework again, go to theintercept.com. Look up Tiger Swan. Now, this is after we already saw the agents in Russia and all these bots that were co-opting Ferguson, co-opting the Black Lives Matter movement as accounts, and trying to wag the dog and bring division within the black community. So then Tiger Swan was hired, which is a security firm that Blackwater, research Blackwater, that Blackwater was, so Blackwater, they dispelled Blackwater, but then they created Tiger Swan. Tiger Swan was hired by Energy Transfer and the funders, all the banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, SunTrust, all of them. Everyone that was funding the Dakota Access Pipeline hired Tiger Swan to infiltrate the movement of Standing Rock. There was a whistleblower. They got some transcripts that came out on theintercept.com. On September, it was Labor Day weekend when I went in front of that bulldozer. The following day, they hired Tiger Swan. In that report that they gave to the Dakota Access Pipeline, Tiger Swan gave to the report, they said, the number one thing we're going to do is use the internet and create accounts to make sure Black people don't come to Standing Rock, to divide Black voices and Black people against Native Americans so they don't come to Standing Rock. They followed me in the airport. They followed me in my car, Tiger Swan. At the time, I didn't know it was Tiger Swan. I thought it was just white folks. I'm like, and then I'm in North Dakota, in Standing Rock, at the camp, getting love, nothing but love. But on the internet, I'm seeing, oh, we don't need, she's not a real Indian. She's this, she's that. She's anti-Semitic. She a Muslim. We don't need Farrakhan. We don't need Black Lives Matter. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the people around me. And I'm not seeing that in real life of what I'm seeing on the internet. So at the time, I'm confused. That whistleblower didn't even come out. We didn't even get this information until 6 months after Standing Rock protest. So then I was like, oh, I knew it was agents that was behind the computer with thousands of accounts, dividing Black people and Native Americans to make sure Black organizations, Black activists, people like you all don't come and fight with us. See, the thing is that we have to understand who our open enemy is. We continue to fall for the okie doke. We continue to fall for the same thing they've been doing for years, which is divide and conquer. So if you want to sit here on the internet and read all these comments and saying, see, they don't like us. See, they have clubhouses. They don't, Clubhouse, you don't even know who's behind those accounts. Those are nothing but voices. You don't know who that is. But you and
let me share something with you.
Yes.
And this is, you know, we vicariously supported you via this channel during Standing Rock because I started doing retreats up in Mount Shasta based on the audience here on this channel. And the very first retreat, which was in December of that year, what was Standing Rock, 2015 or 2016?
2016.
Yeah, we had went and sat in the teepee. It was 36 of us, majority melanated. We were sitting with Lakota elders who were doing this sweat. Well, we didn't do a sweat. We did a what did we do? I don't even know if I'm supposed to mention it on this program.
But a ceremony, like a ceremony.
We were sitting with sacred.
You're cutting out,
medicine. This very.
Yeah.
You're cutting out really bad. You got to go back to where you was at.
Yeah. Your connection, Blue.
Because I really want to hear what you have to say.
Am I still cutting out?
Yes.
All right. I might not be able to say it then.
Let's get to a question real quick, and maybe you could touch on that, the ceremony in Mount Shasta, before we get out of here. Let's get to a question real quick. Somebody wants to know, does doctrine of discovery go hand in hand with so-called Queen or King Jubilee in Europe?
Blue Pill, can you answer that?
The Jubilee that the Queen had recently, I don't quite understand that question. They got to be more specific about that question, because the Jubilee is a celebration of the fact that the Queen, you know, on the throne for 60 years or something like that. So I don't know if that's the same thing that they talking about. The doctrine of discovery is international law that is the authority for white supremacy on the planet. I just read to you what the doctrine was. So I don't think that got nothing to do with the Jubilee.
Okay, let's get to the next question. Queen, did you want to add on to that, or?
I think he needs to be more specific.
Okay.
I'm not getting. I don't want to assume either.
Okay. Who will grant reparation when the USA Inc. is a defunct corporation?
The Church of Rome. Who took you? Was it the U.S. corporation? No. It was the church. It was the Pope.
So basically, the first legal document for everyone, the first legal document that showed discovery or that showed any type of documentation was the Doctrine of Discovery. Everything after the Doctrine of Discovery is basically null and void once the Doctrine of Discovery is rescinded. So to be honest with you, everything after the Doctrine of Discovery is just whatever. Because our whole main thing is to fight to get that rescinded, because they're saying that that everything that they established on stolen land, they established all this stuff on stolen land, and they use this document to do that. And so yeah, so everything all bows down. Even today in 2022, everything all goes through the Pope.
Okay, let's get to the next question. How can I find out my lineage tribe? My elders are no longer living.
Thank you for that question, Lena. I would say that because I get that question all the time. Get with someone that is a genealogist to help you go through your lineage in regards to the documentations. I don't want to shout out any type of sites, but there is various different Black owned sites or apps that you could go through to be able to help to find your lineage. If you are Black, if you're not, then there's other sites to go through. I always tell people, don't use anyone that is taking our DNA for medical use and all of that. I forgot. It's getting late, so my English is about to start being more broken. But yeah, so don't go through anyone that's using that they sold our, selling our DNA to give to medical use or experiments. But find someone that you can trust. That you can be able to go through, that they're not selling your information, and then there's a lot of, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of great people. I don't know a lot of their numbers or anything. I give you the information, but you could get with a genealogist to find out. Now, in regards to your tribe, a lot of the tribes, so the way that they group the tribes up in order for them to take over the tribes and take the tribes was, so for instance, let's just use the Cherokee Nation as an example. The Cherokee Nation is not just the Cherokee Nation. There was hundreds of different bands of Cherokee, but in order for colonizers to take over the territory of where the Cherokee was at, which was the predominantly the southern region, they just grouped them and said, that's all Cherokee. Now, today, many of the Cherokee tribes are reclaiming back their bands. In what region, and they are called different bands of that Cherokee. So you would want to be able to find out what region your family is from. You could Google to find out what tribes historically and are still here in that region, and start making those calls and saying, if you know your family, like let's say, and this is where the blood quantum conversation comes in. But blood quantum was created. All of you all were talking about the $5 Indian. So let's get into the $5 Indian. So, as you know, so when they came and stole America, this is my version because it's late, so y'all bear with me. So when they came and stole America and they started fighting all these Indian tribes, these Native American tribes, and they started grouping everybody up in all these, what they want to call them. A lot of them, they named our tribes. Like my tribe, Ogallala Lakota, or Ocheti Shakoi, which is the Dakota Lakota, they said, oh, let's call them Sioux, because that means stab in the back. They did things like that. So they renamed us and everything. So basically, as we're fighting, for, they're like, okay, we're gonna put you on this reservation, or there was many Trail of Tears, by the way, but it's like, we're gonna put you and push you out and you go to Oklahoma and all this other stuff. But then the settlers, white settlers, was like, man, they're giving all these Native Americans all this land and they're getting these benefits. And we not only do we want to take, we already taken their land, but we want to take more. And how can we do this? So let's go ahead and buy our citizenship for $5. And that's exactly what they did. Now, from that, many tribes was like, you know what? We cannot do this because our blood quantum is minimizing because of this. And we have to make sure that we still have some full-blooded Native Americans. So the government was like, you know what? Okay, we'll do blood quantum. So they did blood quantum, meaning that, let's say now various tribes' blood quantum is different. So when you find out your tribe, right? So let's say it was your great grandmother was Native American, full blood. Then she ended up marrying a Black man. Then that child becomes half, right? Then that child ends up marrying another Black person. Then that becomes 3/4 of blood of that of whatever that Native lineage is. So the blood quantum starts to go smaller, which means that your enrollment, in order for you to enroll in your tribe, depending on who was full blood, then that goes to showing if you can be able to enroll in your tribe or not. Now, I always say this with reconnecting Native Americans, is that learn your culture. Even if your great grandmother was Native American, learn that history. Go to those lands. Be a student. Exactly how I said my great grand family, was Zulu. Man, I want to go to, and then I said by way of Mali, I want to go there. I want to go to Mali. I want to be able to learn. I've been watching Zulu tribes and the warrior dance and all. I'm like, man, I come from that. Now, it may not be direct where I come from, but it's in my lineage. So I want to reconnect with that. You get what I'm saying? So that's exactly what you can do. So if your blood quantum isn't eligible for you to be a part and enrolled in that tribe, that's not denying you. You still are connected to that because that's your family, that's your blood. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that answered your question. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Blue, we about to get out of here. Could you tell that story before we get out of here about the when he was in Mount Shasta when he was doing ceremony? Boy.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Right now.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Is my voice coming through? Right. So we were sitting with elders doing peyote, and these elders' children went to Standing Rock. So here these elders took time out for a ceremony that was considered to be the melding of the quote unquote, the clans, because they said we never sat with melanated people, right? They was from Lakota and Shawnee. And these elders said they never sat. They said indigenous melanated people never came to ceremony and sat with us ever. So we were the first. And they came and sat with us. And it was 36 of us in a teepee. And we sat from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. And it was December, so it was like 30 or 40 degrees outside. And they showed us all of their traditions, and they sung all of their songs, and they beat all of their drums. And by the time we got out of there at 9 a.m., they said, we fucking respect y'all because you earned it. And that Monday, their children went to Standing Rock to die. They got the call when they came out of the tent. They said that their children were saved because they didn't die. It was a Sunday going into a Monday, and it was a holiday, right? And they said a miracle happened because we were putting up in the corn husk, our prayers so they could be sweet and succulent to the ear of the Most High. You have to sacrifice your comfort sitting on your ass from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Show the Most High that you can sit in ceremony before you're heard. Our prayers before our people. Our prayers before your people. Our prayers got answers because their children didn't end up getting killed. And they said, what? Your prayers are strong. say your people are strong and your prayers are strong. Our children, we came out of this ceremony, we dedicated our time to y'all. They didn't turn their back on their children, but they couldn't be there with them, so they was praying for them. And their children still ended up living. Now, I would imagine that their children, along with you as well, you know, they got chemicals sprayed on them. They got things done to them, right? They got treated very unfairly, but still, we were able to see one another as respectable indigenous people sitting side by side, face to face. So you got to earn the respect of other people who don't know you because they've been told lies to them about you, just like you've been told lies about them. And until we get together in commonality and see that we have a level of threshold, I need to know how you pray. I need to know how you could get down before I consider you a brother or a sister. It just can't be alone. Do you have the wherewithal? What are you built from? That's what I need to know.
Yeah.
So I know her heart. I know who she is. I would stand with her. You know what I'm saying? I would defend her.
Thank you.
So if I'm getting a little livid, it's like, yo, y'all don't know her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know her. And this lady, she has put her life on the line several times for melanated people, indigenous people. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure probably even some Caucasians. Right? Because she loves people and she's a healer. She creates venues for healing to take place, even when she needs the healing. You know what I'm saying? So we got to do better in terms of knowing people and a character. This is what this thing is all about. It's not enough to say, yo, they turned, this place upside down. You're not to remain upside down. You're supposed to live this life doing everything you could do to get upright again and see people for who and what they are. Stop believing these lies that are being told by this person with a forked tongue. You feel me? So, yeah,
and I love,
thank you.
I love you,
Yeah,
Blue
so
Pill.
I'm saying all that to say, it was the members, the contingency of that particular retreat were members that came from this audience and this platform that our brother provided, made that happen. So vicariously, we were all there. That's the beauty of this thing. You feel me?
Indeed. That was a beautiful story, Blue, and I'm glad you had the opportunity to tell that before the show ended. That was a great story. You said, I want to see how you pray first. Wow.
And that's so real. And that's what that's why I'm really want to encourage people to just, you don't have to travel far to connect with the earth and connect with the people of the earth. You don't have to travel far. And once you connect with the people of the earth, then you begin to start seeing the connection. And then and that's what it really boils down to. Man, I've been everywhere. And I feel like once you begin, when you have true knowledge of self, many of you all in this comments and that's tuning in, y'all are labeling me all types of things. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I after I told y'all who I am, y'all are like, no, you're not. You have to know who you are. Who you are, what is your lineage, your DNA, not what people are saying that you are. When they're saying you're a Moor, is your last name is Jones. Where did Jones come from? Where did Jackson come from? You're like, well, I'm this. Who are you? You may have felt connected to a Moor. You may have felt connected to Hebrew. You may have, but find out your lineage. And I'm happy that sister asked that question. How do I find out who I am? Find out who you are individually so you can be able to speak and move in confidence. So you could go to the barrio in confidence. You could go to the reservation in confidence and pride. You could go to the hood. You could go to Africa. You could go to the Amazon. You could go to France. You could go to Russia. You go anywhere a part of this world with confidence because you know who you are. And you know whose you are. And you're able to walk with pride and dignity that no one, no matter who, can tell you anything else. You're like, I know who I am. So all of the beat up, the hate, the name calling, the things that I've been through, the police calling me the N-word in my face, a black cop throwing a bike on me, people from every race have beat me down. But I still walk in pride as a black Oglala Lakota woman. Why do I call myself black? Because I know where I came from. And I know that in that transition, there was something that was stolen, that was lost, that I have to connect right back to. So I think that we all, and you can't tell me something different. Just like Blue Pill knows who he is, Black Magic, you know who you are. So you can't allow no one to tell you something else. You have to have knowledge of self, of your family, and who you are. So on this Indigenous Peoples Day, that's what it boils down to, because of Christopher Columbus that came here and brought a slew of havoc for centuries right after him. He brought that here. So we have to reclaim that today is Indigenous Peoples Day. Of all indigenous of people, of the original inhabitants of the world, we have to reclaim that. That's our land back movement.
Man, that was such a powerful way to end the show, y'all. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with y'all tonight. Thank you for the questions tonight from the chat. Like I said, thank you for everybody who participated in the chat tonight as well. Could you leave your contact information, both of y'all, so the people could get in contact with y'all if they would like additional information?
Yeah. So
at Blue Pillar. Oh, ladies first. Go ahead, sis.
So it's on my thing if you could see it. Queen Yonasda, it looks like Yonasda. Please don't harass me if you didn't like me. I will block you. I have 5,000 people blocked on all of my social media platforms. But if you do want to give me love and continue to support me, then follow me. It's Queen. It looks like Yonasda. Yonasda Lone Wolf, and I'm the only Yonasda in the world. So thank you. I appreciate the love.
Indeed. At Blue Pillar 44, that's on all socials, and Blue Pillar 44 at Gmail if you need to shoot me a correspondence. All right. Yeah, Google this, y'all. Get this book, right? Because we need to talk.
What is it called?
It says Concepts in Case Analysis and the Law of Contracts, because I want to go even further at some point, and I want to explain to people, the Napoleonic law and the code and how we got into commercial code. If the people is interested to want to know how they are in perpetual slavery to this day, yeah, let's get into it, right? Let's talk about these boats. You feel me? Let's talk about these colonizers. Let's talk about these games that they play with these paper and pen, so you could finally understand why the pen is mightier than the sword. Our people are under, the dictates of a pen, just enforced by a sword, but you're under light cold lockdown by a piece of paper called the Papal Bull, Doctrine of Discovery, Intricate Terror, that is still part of international law that we have to, if we want to free ourselves, you're going to have to force the Vatican to rescind that. Pope Pablo, signing off. Peace, love, and light.
All right, family. Brother
Thanks,
Rich here.
Magic.
Yes. Queen Yonasda, Brother Blue Pill, we getting out here.
I want to teach everyone a word, if you don't mind, on this amazing Indigenous Peoples Day. We say Matakiasi.
Matakiasi.
Yes, that means we're all related. We're all connected. We're all my relations. So Matakiasi, everyone.
Peace. Matakahasi.
Matakiasi.
I messed it up already. I'm sorry. We ain't even end yet. Oh man. So one more time. Matakiasi.
Yes.
I got it. Takiasi. I got it. Thank you. Peace, y'all. Peace, family.
Hey.
All right.